I went to Ashland, and Ashland is the type of school, it's very small. It's a private school. Everybody knows everybody, first, last name, social security number, like the whole nine. And my brother went there at the time as well. So I felt like when this happened to me, it was also a reflection of him. So I was like, I'm zipping it, like I'm not saying anything, nothing. But it didn't happen like that because it happened on Valentine's Day. It was like, I remember it was 1:32 in the morning. So I remember looking at my watch. He found out that I lied about something in my past. So then he found out because I finally told him. And then that's when like everything just broke loose. So on that night, because everybody heard it because like he choked me up against the wall and like pushed my head against the wall. Like there was a hole in the wall of the dorm outside, and everyone opens their doors and everyone was like looking at us. And I just like remember sliding down the wall and I was just crying. And then the RA was like, I think it's time for you to leave. But the RA didn't even help. He didn't ask what happened, like nothing. So here I am sobbing on my way back down to my dorm. And everybody was like whispering like, oh, that's the girl who got beat, like all this stuff like that. So I stopped going to class. I lost 15 pounds, almost failed out my first semester because I just didn't want to be seen. But it was a severely addictive relationship. Like it was not healthy. Like I feel like I couldn't leave. Like I feel like I was stuck. And I feel like that's hard for people to understand when they're not in the situation. But like the best, I literally was like an addict. I felt like I could not stop. Like I could not get away from it.
Yeah, so the Ohio Domestic Violence Network is a state coalition. So we are responsible for 88 counties here in Ohio for providing services. We provide all types of services, whether that be direct services or prevention services, which is the things that I do. So we have relocation assistance programs, we have programs for schools, we have programs for sheltered women in prison, incarcerated women, and all types of survivors as well. I wouldn't say just women. So yeah, and the things that I do, I'm Engaging Men coordinator, so I just really talk to men about getting into the movement of domestic violence and how they can help and being a responsible ally.
I was talking to Justin about what I should do, and he was like, I think it would be great, we should bring it to campus. He loves going to campuses. So I found it incumbent to have him here because a lot of people go through some sort of abusive relationship, or whether it be verbal, mentally, or physical. And I feel that they don't talk about it. And sometimes I feel like even in our generation is sometimes normal. Like we as a generation, I feel like don't really know how to express ourselves verbally because everything's always behind a phone or different things like that. So I feel like in that aspect it was important. And also because personally, I've also gone through a domestic abusive relationship for 2 years. So to be able to make it out of that and to be in the place that I am now and to find someone like Justin who is fighting for people like myself and for people who are silent, I felt like that was important. And just a little education can go a long way, or just a little education can give someone encouragement to take that next step and to share their story. Just even to know that like when I was sharing my story, somebody had something similar that happened to them, and like somewhere where you can relate to emotions where you don't sound crazy. Because sometimes when you're talking to people who haven't been through it, they're like, how could you even be in that situation? But like you don't understand until you're in that situation. And like I was like, I'll be telling people, girl, I'll never be in this situation. And here I am in this situation. I was like, how could I remember growing up, I was like, I don't like watching movies. I'm like, how could someone, stay in these abusive relationships? But it's not easy to leave. It's not easy because different factors come into like guilt and like love and, all these different things that you feel. And it causes a lot of dissonance within yourself, which causes a lot of conflict, which causes you just not even to know what's going on.
So domestic violence is not just what you see in the movies. It's actually very little like that. Domestic violence is basically an act of violence, and that can be physical violence, mental violence, financial abuse, all types of different forms of violence that feed into domestic violence. And a lot of times when we talk about domestic violence, people like to get specific. So domestic violence speaks specifically for what's going on in the home.
It's just something that everyone has their own different battles. So I feel like for Justin to come in and give them like some affirmative action in their head, like, oh, like I'm not, like it's okay for me to feel this way. I feel like that can go a long way. And then if they feel like it's okay, they're going to tell somebody else it's okay. And they're just going to keep saying it's okay, it's okay. So a lot of people said that they didn't think that way, and they didn't know what that was, or they was like, I'd never even heard of the man box. So I feel like for them to even start there, and for them to know that things don't have to be violent, and that you can express yourself, and like guys have a right to feel how they want to feel just as women do. So just because you're mad about something doesn't mean you choke somebody, doesn't mean you throw a glass jar at them, that doesn't mean that you punch them in the face or kick them in the side. You know, it means that you can express yourself and you can use your words, or you can take a day or two and calm down and come back and then try to put those feelings into words.
I've seen domestic violence all the time throughout my entire life. I just didn't know that's what it was being labeled as, in the grand scheme of things. I do the work for women like her, and I do the work for women like my mom and my aunt and the women that I've seen, abused firsthand. So that's really what I do it for.
I feel stronger. I feel like I can walk with my head held a little higher, because it made like an alpha out of me.